Okay, let's jump right into this explainer on the absolute catastrophe that is the final season of The Boys. You know, for 5 seasons, we've watched that line between dystopian fiction and our incredibly dark reality blur, right? Well, in season 5, that line doesn't just blur, it completely shatters. We are looking at the culmination of years of blood-soaked storytelling. Every major conflict, it's pushed to its absolute breaking point.
To really get the weight of this final season, you gotta look at what showrunner Eric Kripke said. He pointed out how real-life authoritarianism actually kind of outpaced the show's dark satire before they even started filming. He talked about writing the season before the 2024 election and watching real-world events unfold with this mix of shock and dismay. And honestly, that sets an incredibly heavy, grounded tone right out of the gate. We're not just dealing with rogue superheroes anymore. We're talking about the terrifying mechanics of absolute power.
Which leads us directly into Act 1, the dark reality, and the terrifying consequences of absolute power.
Literally, from the opening episode, we are thrust into a nightmare. Homelander isn't just some rogue celebrity anymore, he's the de facto ruler of America. We're talking internment camps for dissidents and the brutal live execution of anyone who dares to oppose his regime. The sources even detail a chilling scenario where the president is eliminated, and the entire U.S. military is completely helpless against him. The shiny, corporatized world of Vought, gone. It's been replaced by pure, unadulterated fascism.
As the world burns, the central conflict pivots, moving on to Act 2, becoming monsters, the arms race.
This is where the terrifying parallel really hits you. Homelander learns about V1, right? That original Compound V variant that grants immortality. His goal is to elevate himself from a superhuman into an actual untouchable god. Meanwhile, you've got Butcher, who is completely sacrificing whatever morals he has left to synthesize a virus to wipe out all soups. He's effectively committing genocide. So you have these two guys, two sides of the exact same terrifying coin, totally abandoning their humanity just to destroy each other. Watching this play out week by week, the escalation is just incredibly rapid. In episode 2, Frenchie is already running lethal virus field tests. By episode 3, Sister Sage drops the bombshell about the immortality-granting V1. And then the tension completely snaps in episode 6 when Homelander finally gets his hands on V1, injects himself, and becomes practically invincible. The ticking clock isn't just about stopping Homelander anymore, it's about whether the world is even going to survive the crossfire. Driven by that V1 serum, Homelander's god complex reaches critical mass. He straight up declares, "My power is absolute," and forces the creation of the Democratic Church of America. He makes himself the unquestioned prophet. He doesn't just want fear anymore, he demands genuine religious worship. The sources mention he even listens to the heartbeats of reporters to see if they truly believe him, with horrific consequences when he realizes they don't. But this war for America's soul comes with a massive body count. Here's Act 3. Collateral damage and chaos. No one is safe. The sheer scale of the collateral damage here is staggering. I mean, fan favorites are just wiped out as the stakes peak. A-Train is brutally murdered by Homelander right after finally doing the right thing and saving Huey. Firecracker gets killed simply for doubting Homelander's divinity. Oh Father, literally ripped in half for pointing out the bad optics of mass slaughter. And most heartbreaking of all, based on the leaks and creator commentary, Frenchie makes a gritty, ultimate sacrifice in episode 7, dying in Kimiko's arms just to protect her from Homelander's wrath. On a macro level, the bright, patriotic lie of Vought is completely destroyed. Vought Tower, which used to be the shining beacon of corporate dominance, is violently purged. Homelander is massacring civilians on live TV and slaughtering his own loyalists. Executives like Ashley Barrett quickly realize that corporate synergy means absolutely nothing to a mad god, forcing her to abandon the empire and flee to France just to survive. Amidst all this global chaos, the psychological warfare hits rock bottom with a wildly intimate act of violence. Homelander visits the boys' headquarters, and when he's reminded of Butcher, he brutally lasers Butcher's beloved dog, Terror. This isn't just a pet dying. This is the final tether to Butcher's sanity completely snapping. It pushes Butcher way past the point of no return into a purely genocidal rage. He is all in on unleashing the virus. And caught right in the chaotic middle of these two monsters is Ryan. He watches this massacre unfold. He sees what his biological father is truly capable of, especially after suffering a brutal beating at Homelander's hands earlier in the season. Seeing the death of Terror and the sheer madness of his dad, the boy is forced to make a truly desperate choice. He finally rejects Homelander's vision of supreme power and fully sides with Butcher's brutal, messy humanity.
which brings everything crashing together in the 8th and final episode. Act 4, the tragic finale, Blood and Bone. Inside the Oval Office, it's a highly coordinated final stand. They need every single ounce of power they have left just to depower a V1-infused Homelander. Marie uses her blood manipulation alongside Butcher's tentacles to restrain him. Starlight throws everything she has into temporarily blinding him. In that tiny window, Huey manages to infect Homelander with the virus. And then Kimiko, supercharged by her own chaotic arc, releases a massive blast that knocks absolutely everyone in the room out.
The irony of what comes next is palpable and honestly tragic. We remember the untouchable, neon-lit god demanding worship on national TV, right? But when the smoke clears in the Oval Office, what we're left with is a crying, powerless human being. For the very first time in his life, Homelander is stripped of his invincibility. He is terrified of his sudden vulnerability, reduced to the exact kind of weak, mortal creature he spent his entire life despising.
Stripped of superpowers and reduced to a gritty, bare-knuckle brawl, this epic clash of gods ends in the dirt. It's just two broken men beating each other. Butcher, channeling all his grief, rage, and loss, savagely ends Homelander's life. Not with some high-tech weapon or a superpower, but with a crowbar. It is a brutally grounded, deeply ugly, and intensely human end to a supposed deity.
The war ends, but it leaves a fractured, smoke-filled world behind. The soup industry is completely decimated. Vought is a literal crater. Starlight and Huey flee to Mexico to escape the massive fallout. Ryan remains as one of the very last powerful soups on Earth. And Butcher? Entirely consumed by the war he fought, he escapes to live in dark, quiet isolation in Hawaii. Meanwhile, Stan Edgar quietly schemes in the shadows, proving that while the monsters may die, the corporate greed that birthed them almost never does. The survivors are just left scattering to pick up the pieces.
As we reflect on this explosive and morally ambiguous journey, what you should really take away from this explainer is a haunting final question. What happens to a world that willingly created superheroes, worshipped them, and gave them absolute power, only to be left terrified and broken in the bloody aftermath of their destruction? Homelander is gone, but the scars he and Vought left on the world are permanent. Can society ever truly recover from the monsters it designed? Think about that as we close the book on The Boys.